but we're glad to have Bryan Munson of Husker Online on the horn with us. Bryan, you spent most of the last couple days, at least this time last week, in Nashville. How was that, my friend?
It rained the entire time. No, it was fine. I mean, lots of things have changed since I was there 4 or 5 years ago. Lots of interesting things there in the downtown area, but got to see the On3 headquarters, which was awesome. And came home and got sick as a dog. I'm literally just starting to climb back into like regular life today because I had such bad like body aches. Like on Friday, I didn't want to get out of bed. It was so bad. I was negative for flu, negative for COVID, all of it. It was a very, very odd scenario, but whatever that virus was I had, it was not fun.
So are we blaming Nashville? Are you going to stay away in the future, or are you headed back?
I think that's going to be an annual trip for me as long as they'll keep having me come back. It was a very productive little trip to talk about the direction, of the company and things that they're working on and, how to be better in different spaces and comparatively what people are doing across the platform and advancements in what they're going to be delivering IT wise. It was actually very insightful to kind of see that kind of behind the scenes stuff. And it's refreshing, like hearing like Shannon Terry and his son, Jack Terry, and Will Crowell, who's another big exec there, kind of walk you through it because they're, as much as they are execs, they were like really like boots on the ground. They were very involved. So that's actually a really nice feeling knowing that there's not this massive amount of distance between real boots on the ground and those guys that are kind of taking the feedback and paying the bills.
We love that for you. We love your work at Husker Online and glad you spent some time with us here on the block. We haven't talked since it became official that you're NFL quarterback, NFL MVP. Your reaction to Josh Allen winning NFL MVP this year, Bryan?
My reaction was I went out and I bought an autographed jersey.
Nice. Yes.
I went and got a pretty nice one, and I struggle with putting the jerseys into the cases themselves. So I think I'm going to get this one professionally done, and already got like a new space. I'm going to have to clear some room here in my office here a little bit, and it's mainly just a Nebraska man cave in my office. But going to have to allocate a little bit of space here to Josh Allen and put something up over here on this other wall. So I'm trying to figure it all out. I need to try to find somebody down here that can do it for me.
Pretty incredible for Josh Allen to come all the way from 4 turnovers against Nebraska at Wyoming to NFL MVP, huh?
It really is. I mean, honestly, the reaction that you still see, like when the fans are kind of like reacting to the pick and then they're dejected, the one guy pulls his hat off and they're like thinking they're in this this funk that they're never going to get out of, from the JP Lossmans of the world to, I can't remember who the other couple of those quarterbacks were in the 90s that were just terrible. And just, they just didn't really have a first rounder, maybe Eric Moulds, maybe Lee Evans, like were a couple guys that really did their thing, but they missed on some other ones. They missed on some really, really big ones. So, I think that there was just they've been looking for a really productive first-round draft pick, and initially that the feedback was they didn't think that Josh would be the guy. So glad that he is. Certainly glad that he is. But I love so far like the mock drafts that I've been looking at, guys, because it's like it's doing exactly what I would do. Buffalo's got to go back and you don't score 29 and lose because of offense. You're losing because you're allowing 30 or more. So you've got to go get better inside. You need somebody next to Ed Oliver, and you need some help on the corner. You need some help in the secondary in general, safety position. And Milano's not getting any younger, and he's a little bit more injury prone the last couple of years. So figure that situation out. But I would spend my first 3 of the first 5 rounds, on the defensive side of the football. That'd be where my picks were going.
I think that's a completely valid strategy. While we're on quarterbacks, Bryan, I do want your opinion on the Dylan Raiola and Emmett Johnson barnstorming tour. They've been everywhere this offseason. What do you make of their involvement in the local hoop scene, Lincoln, Omaha, other professional sporting events out at Nebraska events all the time? Is that guys enjoying college? Is that guys taking advantage of the opportunities? Or is that guys maybe doing too much and feeding too much into the limelight? How are you looking at that?
No, I think he's genuinely interested and enthusiastic about what's going on there, the local scene. I think both those guys are very genuine individuals, first of all. And I think that when those opportunities have kind of come up to get out and maybe pay homage to, the local high school teams that the parents and the kids are going to be there watching them play in the fall, it's kind of a way for them to kind of pay it back, to kind of give them that kind of attention. I think it's wonderful for the high schools. I think it's great for obviously the university. I don't think it's going to hurt those guys NIL at all, for those guys to be showing up and hanging out with those places as well. So I think that this is just two guys that are enthusiastic. They're probably looking forward to getting a little more involved in the spring ball practices. And until then, they're going to spend their time in the high school gyms, making sure that everybody else is kind of feeling the love from them.
Kind of the Ed Foley role, but taken on the players' shoulders. Is that fair?
Very true. I think that that's a great comparison.
It's interesting, too, because Ed Foley, he's still on the Nebraska staff in some capacity, isn't he?
He is. I think it's pretty well thought out, too, because it's, you remember like when Matt Rule introduced Mike Eckler, and he specifically said a non-recruiting role. Well, okay. Well, we all know that Eckler's a pretty solid recruiter. Think about the Will Compton story. He's obviously recruited other dudes at Nebraska, at Tennessee. He was a good recruiter for the Volunteers. He's seen a lot of different territories. Since he left Nebraska, UNT, Oklahoma, USC, Georgia, Indiana. I mean, he's been to 4 or 5 really big, solid, strong schools, So he's had a chance, an opportunity to kind of do some different things. So I think, though, what this means is if Ed Foley did like one thing that had everybody excited about it, it was his window time and dedication to the local high schools in Nebraska. And it sounds like there will be some sort of like a local Nebraska area high schools, kind of like coordinator or contact or something. And that's going to be probably the role he'll be sitting in and helping out the staff with just kind of making sure that everybody's kind of getting the community relations that he was offering up before in his previous gig.
That's pretty cool. I'm glad that Nebraska found a role for him that he's going to be able to succeed at like that. I mean, that's something that you said was very popular among fans and clearly isn't going to hurt the program with all that involvement, that engagement. But speaking of involvement and engagement on special teams, is that just the biggest thing that Mike Eckler brings, is getting more buy-in on special teams, more energy, more enthusiasm for it? Is it something schematic he's going to bring? What's the biggest point of the Eckler addition on special teams for Nebraska?
Well, I think he's an energetic guy. I mean, he's, a year or two older than I am. And actually we crossed paths somewhere back down the line in high school, if I recall. I think that that's number one. I think he's always been a high energy guy. And I think when it comes to special teams and strength and conditioning coordinators, it helps to have that characteristic, that trait. I think the other side of it is too, he's passionate. He's a passionate coach that looks forward to coaching that entire team, because special teams is the entire team with just a few exceptions. He has availability to him to grab the best players across the various cross sections of the team and put the overall group in a situation to win and be good. And I think he looks forward to those first 15 minutes of every practice of going through that with them all. I think he looks forward to coaching the team, but being a coordinator. It's a unique kind of thing. I think his feeling about how he is going to go ahead and go about it and how he goes about his business. But truly, he's been effective. I mean, he's had really good numbers at Tennessee. And I think getting home, obviously for him, it's probably one of those kind of glad it came back around kind of deals. Fortunate that it happened, but honestly, there wasn't really another guy as we kind of look back at it again and kind of heard some other names about some other people, but there really was another guy, in my opinion, that could come in there, I think, and do the kind of job that needs to be done other than Mike Eckler. I mean, he's got my stamp of approval. I think he's going to really come in there. He's going to win the hearts and minds of the guys. He's so relatable, former player, former walk-on, with a mohawk and face paint, looking like a road warrior. And he will be absolutely fine when some of the guys kind of get down and talk to him and kind of can relate to some things personally with him.
We're talking with Bryan Munson of Husker Online here on our Allo Fiber VIP line. Bryan, I do want to get to something that just got posted this morning. I'm really excited for this series, getting to know the 2025 Husker signees. You put one up about Jeremiah Jones. I think that's a really fascinating prospect, big athletic guy. And at the bottom of this article, he mentions that he's going to play receiver, start out at least as a wide receiver. What do you make of that decision? Was that a Nebraska decision? Was that a Jeremiah Jones decision? How much collaboration on that decision was there? And what's your outlook for him at the wide receiver position?
I think Nebraska was tossing and turning with it anyway. I mean, I think that they first envisioned him as an in-the-box safety. He's a tremendous athlete. He's a big dude. But I think as time kind of went on, and as you saw the film that I embedded in that story, he's gifted. He's a gifted route runner. He runs effortlessly. He's the kind of guy that is going to be really fun to watch because, he goes straight from football into basketball. And if you give this guy some time to kind of get into an off-season program, get into a training table, see what kind of happens, you could really have yourself kind of that big jumbo X looking guy that could probably swing down to a Y like a Carter Nelson, he's just super long and athletic and has got great ball tracking and great hands. Not saying he couldn't play defense, but I think that this was just kind of we need a guy like that on that side of the football. We're not going to have another guy like that, right away. So, and he's got some really, really high standards. I mean, for himself, he's talking about 7 touchdowns, 400 yards or 700 yards receiving, I think it was, and 45 some odd catches or whatever. I mean, he was very specific, but he was one of those guys too that alluded to the fact that down the stretch, he was getting it from at least one school that was really negatively recruiting against Nebraska. I love that question, by the way, in that questionnaire.
Yeah. It's
like, tell me somebody was saying something bad about Nebraska. And it was just like, oh yeah, that happened. And it's really fun to kind of get into that. He kept his cards a little bit closer to the chest on that one, but he at least let the cat out of the bag. And I think we probably all could look at one another and just kind of nod and say it was Missouri, but whatever. So no, he's going to be an interesting one to watch. Only thing I think going against him on that one is just that, he's not an early enroller. So it'll be very interesting to see, when he gets to campus, what's he looking like? What kind of shape is he in? How quickly can he assimilate all the things that he needs to have to really be that big of a factor in the fall?
I'm not going to say he can't get the 40 whatever catches, 7 touchdowns and 700 yards, but I do think that's going to be a bit of a long shot, Bryan, just because of the other guys Nebraska, brought in at that position. You think about Isaiah Hunter from Cal, the 2 Kentucky guys in Dane Key and Hardly Gilmore the 4th, on top of a pretty established couple receivers already and on the program as well. What's the vision? What's the message for Jeremiah Jones during this offseason once he gets to campus, then throughout the season. What's the vision of a player? Who's the comp that if you're in Nebraska, you're trying to sell him, he can be the next whoever in a year after when it's his time?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, you hope that Carter Nelson has the type of numbers and type of season that we all kind of dreamt about this year, next year. Mm-hmm. And that you can kind of keep Jeremiah watching that guy, because Carter's not a true Y. He's not a true tight. He's somewhere between an X and a Y.
He's a football player, like Matt Rule would say.
And I'll tell you what, so is Jeremiah. Jeremiah is a guy that you could snap the ball to him in a wildcat, and he'll go crazy. I mean, maybe you don't need Heinrich Harburg at quarterback at all this fall for any type of direct snap stuff, because you'll have Jeremiah Jones. I mean, Jeremiah runs the wildcat very well from other film that's on his huddle. So he's a very interesting dude. But I would say, hopefully, you're telling him, we're not going to pigeonhole you. We're not going to pick you into a corner. We want to go ahead and leave all the possibilities out in front of you. So come in here, do what you do, watch this guy, and I would point to Carter, and I would say, we see you athletically as being very similar sized, and the ability to kind of do all these other things with you on the football field. No limit. And that's how I would kind of just phrase it up to him.
I love it. I love that vision. I love that thought. And I'm looking forward to reading more and more of these profiles, Bryan. Any other guys from the 25 class that you're excited to get their questionnaires back and go through and then publish?
Yeah, in fact, the one I kind of did it out of order. I had talked to everybody except for one person. Could not get a hold of them before they enrolled. And I thought I had run all the early enrollers already. So I think I might be getting to Dawson Merritt tonight.
Ooh.
And that's a really good one. That's a very good one, obviously. So Dawson Merritt's coming up. And Sean Hammerbeck's one. I actually already ran Sean Hammerbeck's. Hammerbeck was another one that was not an early enroller, but I already ran it. It was super good because I didn't realize he had an appendicitis and lost a bunch of weight before the season started. So these are very, very insightful, detailed stuff, particularly now since we don't talk about those guys after August 1st.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, we will definitely make sure we point people to Husker Online to keep reading those and see which ones that come out next. Excited for those as well. Bryan, stay on the road to recovery. Hope you keep getting better, my friend. Thanks for mustering the energy, finding the time to talk to us here today. We'll do it again soon.
No coughs on the air, man. I can't believe it.
You're a champ. You're a people's pro. We appreciate it, Bryan. Talk to you again soon.
See you guys.